And so it's all traveling through the most like vicious areas. And so we're still dropping water. So there's all these trails that they've formed, and there's these sort of spots where you'll find trash, or you'll find like candles, or we'll find out that somebody died there, and we'll go to that location and find a new trail, and then we'll start to follow those trails and leave water along them. And once we see that the water is getting consumed, we'll make those regular hiking trails and we leave water.
Hey, how you going? My name is Lachlan Watt and music is my life. This week's episode is a conversation with the man behind the industrial doom metal project Author and Punisher. Once again, like the last handful of episodes recorded at Damnation Festival in Manchester in November of last year. It has been a little over 20 years since Tristan Shone decided to combine his interests in music and mechanical engineering to start Author and Punisher. Now, up until the recent addition of Doug Sabolick of the bands Ecstatic Vision and A Life Once Lost on guitar, it has been an entirely one-man band thanks to his DIY instruments dubbed drone machines. Now, the live performance of this was something to behold, with Tristan surrounded by various synthesizers, keyboards, vocoders, and a hand-activated drum machine that he's constantly punching in and out. The dude basically looks like he's in the cockpit of a musical mech suit. The latest album, his 8th one in fact, is called Nocturnal Birding, and it's an album that I would say is the most immediate and accessible piece of music from Author and Punisher so far. Fascinatingly enough, it's also an album built around field recordings of various different bird species that Tristan has recorded while hiking. Here's a recent cut of a live recording of the track Black Storm Petrel. Tristan and I had chatted a little online in the months prior to this, but this was our first time meeting, and I really enjoyed getting to know him while diving into the project's origins, going deep on his volunteer work helping immigrants along the southern US border, as well as his ongoing efforts to bring his musical instruments to life in a public-facing retail sense. My name is Lachlan Watt, music is my life. Please support my work with a like or a subscribe if you could be so kind and generous. Now I give you my conversation with Tristan Shone of Author and Punisher. Cheers.
It's been pretty brutal. New gear. My dog died 5 days before I left. She was a part of our soul, so I had to do rehearsals in that mindset. So.
That's I'm really sorry to hear about your dog, man. That's a really bloody rough way to start things off.
Oh, it's just but at the same time, I really this new album means a lot to me, and the material and getting it really dialed and wanting to give it my all and have it sound properly for the fans. I had this thing pulling me of I need to grieve and hang out with my wife and deal with this. And I also was I need to, for myself, honor these songs and do it properly. And Doug just flew into town to start rehearsals. It was just it was a tough 5 days, but when we got on the airplane and just sat down with a glass of wine and just melted into the seat. And I was like, okay, now we're in the zone,
And you've been staying in the zone. The shows have been going well.
Yeah, I got a little, I'm handling a lot. I was a one-man band. I do the fucking ferries. I do books a lot of hotels, and I don't like staying in band apartments anymore. So I'm kind of a little bitch about that kind of stuff. Just turned 48 on the first day of the tour, so I'm more complicated than I used to be as a human. A little bit
more sleeping on floors.
No more sleeping on floors. And Doug is way more punk rock than I am. I'm fucking kind of bougie. Not even bougie. Let's just say 2-star hotel.
Something with a locking door.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really like, I think I put so much into this that I like to have my own headspace when I'm on tour. I know that about myself. Just go and watch actually the football match on today. I should be watching, but a Liverpool fan playing Manchester in about an hour, I think. So actually, we might have to cut this short.
Doug's a new addition to the band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with his work in A Life Once Lost. I used to love that band.
Yeah.
Incredibly underrated. How did he come into the fold?
Man, Doug took A Life Once Lost, took Author and Punisher on tour 2012. I got an email from him out of the blue, and he just wanted to. It was like their last tour. He was transitioning into doing more like this sort of ecstatic trance, psych rock stuff. So that's kind of where A Life Once Lost was going, which is kind of a weird. I think a lot of people thought it was a weird transition for him, but he started that band when he was like 16, so he was a kid, playing metalcore, and he grew out of it, that happens to people. And so I went on that tour with him, and after that, Phil Anselmo asked me to go on tour after a trip to Manchester, actually, and Doug wrote and said, "Hey, I want to come out and do lights for you on that tour." So we sort of just kept the relationship going, and he lives in Philly. And then when this other guy wrote the guitar parts in the last album, and I needed a touring player, I immediately thought of Doug. And then we ended up writing this album together because we formed a good kind of partnership, and we had some ideas for what really works well live, not just what you can make in the studio. So we started playing these old tracks, started cycling out the new tracks from the Crawler album and playing these more abrasive tracks that felt more live with less live sequence. So I felt like I had a band again, and that's what the new album is like. Yeah,
the new album definitely feels a lot more immediate and kind of in your face than Crawler. Has it been received really well?
Yeah, I mean, we just played the album straight through. I wanted to play all the songs. I don't know if we'll stay doing that because you sort of find what grabs and what doesn't. But I think most of it works pretty well. I'm pretty stoked on it, and I haven't played music like this. I also don't like playing with other people usually. So hearing the guitar not be perfect all the time on stage in my ears is, I was worried about it, and it's easy. It's actually great. Even when he messes up, we come in and out of it together. We're not always on perfect timing, and it's kind of cool.
Is that why you started a one-man project in the first place? So you didn't have to rely on other people, and they couldn't piss you off by not playing things right?
Well, it was also people getting having kids, working 3 years on an album, somebody having a kid or an issue with whatever their job, and or just spending all their money on drugs and not paying for the rental space, that kind of shit. And I was a more reliable person. So.
And how do you get from there to actually building your own instruments? What sort of background did you need to have those skills, or even have the idea to do that in the first place? It's insane.
Well, I mean, I was just playing the Godflesh, Throne. I loved Thrones at the time, and I still do. One-man project with the drum machine. That's what I was doing. And but I was in art school trying to I transitioned out of doing mechanical engineering for companies, telecom, automation, robotics. I was a soulless kind of job. And so I went back to art school to try to do more sculpture. Hey, I want to use these mechanical engineering skills to build because I'd worked for a few artists that had built new media installations. So I built some really bad sculpture for a couple of years while I was getting the grad program, but also doing Author and Punisher. And it just sort of was I should make a sound interface that's sculptural and physical. Because I love these old machine tools, lathes and mills, not these new 3D printers, but the really old ones with the knobs, and that you really feel the force when you turn the knob. The gear and the worm drive is driving weights. I wanted that's heavy, and that was to translate that into heavy dub. I mean, at the time I was mostly into dub and sound system rave culture, a little less into metal. So some friends and I were building these giant sound systems in grad school and having these parties. But I sort of was able to find ways in the noise community and dub to sort of bring it back into metal somehow, and then slowly over the years, like drone doom ambient into like a little bit more organized, and now I've gotten to the point with this stuff where I feel like I can play the songs I've wanted to play. More. My right hand is more automatic playing the drums.
And how would you describe like how much the instruments or the machines have evolved and been like reconstructed from the beginning to where they're at now?
When at the beginning, I wasn't thinking about touring. I was just thinking about making something heavy that was exactly, would be in a gallery, and I would go up and play it and turn it. And so like a couple of the first things were these like 300-pound discs that were were cut on a lathe at this Oceanography Institute, which was like some huge lathe. Like it takes two people to lift the disc off and put it into a case, and then you need 4 people to lift that, So I'm not going to Europe. I think there was a moment I was like, oh, like these festivals will like this and they'll fly all that gear over, but that didn't happen. So I had to find a way to fit it in this Pelican case you have, Pelican Air. I think that's like a 1615. That's
it.
Yeah, that one. I'm like, okay, in my CAD model, I have this, and I'm like, okay, the device has to fit in there, and it has to be under 23 kilos. So
it's more logistic than creative, I suppose, as to how the instruments have changed.
Well, it's both. I mean, that is where we're at. I mean, that's a what do you call it? A limitation, or that artists need to have, because if you want to go tour. So I kind of take it as like, okay, instead of having endless opportunity or endless options, because I feel like sometimes people in the studio, you can buy every synth, and then you're like, oh fuck, what do I do? It's almost better writing an album with one synth and one drum machine, because you'll write better shit. So I find this to be like sort of like honing the limits of my creativity. So I don't have endless options. I'm like, okay, it has to fit in there, and I've got 4 of those. So that's what I'm working with.
I remember I was working on tours with a friend. I don't know if you know Damien Coward. He played in a band called Airs and another one called Collapse.
Okay, yep.
I think he'd been in touch with you at some point, but he was like, we should tour Author and Punisher, but we're going to have to figure out like international shipping or something to get all these instruments over. And I'm like, it sounds like too hard basket for me, man.
Yeah, I mean, now I got, for the most part, from like I would say 2015 until 2024, I had 4 Pelican cases. But when I would tour the US, I would have a bigger setup, and so when they would get to Europe, fans will come up to the table and, oh, I thought you had a bigger setup. This is a little disappointing, and so but they don't understand how fucking expensive it is. I store tables over here in Amsterdam. I store a lot of gear as much as I can, like all the cables. So I have doubles. But now I think we had 12 Pelican cases on this tour. So it will be expensive, but there's some tricks.
But it keeps growing?
Keeps growing. You'll see tonight. I mean, the setup is pretty gnarly. But it feels where it should be, and I feel like it's satisfying to the fans to see the interaction with more gear. And that's what I'm going to be using for the next couple of years.
Nice. So tell us more about the record, Nocturnal Birding. Every track named after a different bird?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I knew some metal people would think that was like, well, you know what? It's kind of a little bit of a troll on the metal community in some ways. I mean that in like, I got into birding, I got into hiking. I think since the pandemic, I started to slow down a little bit, spend more time in my mornings than at my nights, like out in the town, and sort of like, it was, and so I think with the bird sounds and getting this bird app and started listening to birds and walking and hiking, and then heard some of these sounds that really, when I started fucking with them, were really industrial and really rhythmic, but also like the thrush and the meadowlark, and some of these tones are like these really heartfelt melodies that reminded me of bands that I really like, like Neurosis and Yezu and these sort of, and Amun-Ra and things like this. And and it just came to me that, yeah, maybe I could sort of like do this. Every song, just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm making a song based on all these sounds.
So each song is actually built around like the field recordings of a different bird.
Yeah, but most of them. There's a couple that are more like I would say like lyrically about the experiences of hiking and the border stuff that I did um, than exactly about birds. But I would say maybe 6 of them are based on bird sound.
Tell us about the border stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah, that was also, I mean, you just getting involved somehow since Trump got in office. I hadn't been that involved with activism. My wife has been a long time activist for climate, racial justice, housing in our community. And she was always trying to get me to get involved. And there was a protest. Trump was blasting some ground to build a border wall on the Mexico border. And it was destroying an old Kumeyaay, which is like indigenous tribe. This is the Kumeyaay Nation in our region. They were blasting some of the land and destroying a burial ground. So we were protesting it and blocking these trucks. And I met some people that were talking about the immigration trails along the border and how many people were dying every year. And there's a group called Border Angels. And I tried to volunteer for them, but they were just so many people were getting involved. I couldn't get involved. So I finally was able to go volunteer for them. And I loved it. It was meeting great people, learning so much about that issue.
So what did the volunteering actually look like on the day to day?
So basically, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of border wall, but also no wall. And what they do is they build the wall in the areas that are easy to cross, and they leave the mountainous areas that are really deadly open with the wall. So they funnel people through these walls. It's like prevention through deterrence. And by deterrence, that means death and hardship. So they know they're there. There's cameras everywhere. They let them hike into the mountains until they're nearly, suffering or starving or dehydrated. And then sometimes they'll pick them up. But a lot of times people will die, and they want them to tell their families so that the families won't come. Yeah, but I mean, the desperation in Latin America and Central America and all across the world is such that America has created these problems in these countries based on colonialism and war it's uninhabitable in a lot of ways. So they are coming to work. They're going to come. They're still coming, even though Trump has made it illegal to seek refugee status. They're coming, and they're dying. And so
I didn't realize he'd made it illegal to seek refugee status.
They've shut down all amnesty except for I think it's like South Africa.
The white South Africans.
The white South Africans, which is kind of
insane.
Funny. So it used to be before Trump got in office, you would have people just walking across the border with like roller bags and families, like people from the Punjabi region, like Ukrainians, Russians, all across the world, Haiti. But now we're seeing mostly like people from South America that are here to work because they need to support their families. So they have jobs or they're coming to see their families and maybe going back across, but there's no amnesty anymore. And so it's all traveling through the most like vicious areas. And so we're still dropping water. So there's all these trails that they've formed, and there's these sort of spots where you'll find trash or you'll find like candles, or we'll find out that somebody died there, and we'll go to that location and find a new trail. And then we'll start to follow those trails and leave water along them. And once we see that the water is getting consumed, we'll make those regular hiking trails and we leave water.
I think I saw something once about Border Patrol going through and like destroying stashes of water and supplies that people were leaving for refugees. And there must be you're playing cat and mouse with people like that as you do this.
Yeah, and it's a touchy situation because a lot of people don't want to even work with Border Patrol at all, and I don't want to either, but they're there. And a lot of times we can't get access to some of those areas unless they allow it. So it's kind of like we hate them, Chingo Migra, but at the same time, in some cases, it's a relationship that you have to maintain. Otherwise, they'll just shut it down because some of these dirt roads that you drive through to get there have a gate, and we call, sometimes we let them know we're going, sometimes we don't. Different groups. There's 3 groups in San Diego: El Otro Lado, Border Angels that I work with mostly, and Borderlands Relief Collective. And every group has like a different policy. Some are like official nonprofits, and some are like a little bit more on the anarchist side of things,
right?
Punk rock, and so.
Are you jeopardizing yourself in any way by being involved in this stuff? Like, is there an effort from the state to crush down on these organizations?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's not just these organizations, but anybody. The aiding and abetting question is like, if we come across a migrant on the trail, which doesn't happen as much as we used to, but it does happen, you can't help them find their way. You can call Border Patrol if they're in need of like medical help. You can give them water, but you can't like put them in your car and take them somewhere.
You'd be breaking the law by doing that?
Yeah, that would be aiding and abetting the FBI. You could be going to prison. There's a
federal crime?
Yeah, federal. There's a famous case in Arizona where somebody brought somebody into their, they had a barn where a lot of these volunteers would sleep, and they brought them in there to sleep and give them food, and that was considered aiding and abetting. It was a big case. So trying to keep it more like, okay, that's north. There's a Border Patrol office up there. I can call them and they can come, but for the most part, you can't do too much. Yeah.
Sounds like it'd be like just as heartbreaking as it is fulfilling.
Yeah.
To be doing all of that.
It's pretty heartbreaking when you get when we find out about somebody that died and we go to the location, and you just kind of like look around and see the environment where they cut the trees to remove the body, and we'll put up a memorial. So it's brutal, but then you hope that, okay, there's a lot of people on this trail. We're leaving water here now, and we're going to regularly leave water here. So you just hope that in the future that helps.
It's insane that despite the government's best efforts, people are still so desperate that they'll put themselves at that kind of level of risk to get to America.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would say, like, oh, nobody wants to come there now, but there's still, the wages are really good. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of farming. There's a lot of all sorts of work. I mean, and it's not even, I think a lot of people just think it's like, farm workers, but it's, I mean, there's so many families that are like electricians and middle-class Americans that came from places that they were getting politically, what's the word I'm looking for? Persecuted. So they're not day laborers or something like that. It's just the whole range of, I don't want to say class, but financial levels or whatever.
Different walks of life.
Walks of life are coming, So
that must have given you like just a ton of emotion to channel into Nocturnal Birding.
Yeah, and it's all my albums have like that kind of like, when you start writing lyrics, you just start putting it, you start putting this stuff in there. And I like singing about that stuff. So I think the last album was kind of like more about like these sort of survivalist maniacs during the pandemic, and sort of making up these like fantasy sci-fi stories in the desert about these guys. It was maybe a little more cynical. I think this album was a little bit more heartfelt,
A bit more hopeful.
Yeah, I think so.
It's an interesting juxtaposition, that and birds.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, the bird thing, I just, I always like a little bit of humor in the stuff that I do too. I try not to take it too seriously because there is so much, I think this is why I connect with Health pretty well, like when we're on tour, because those guys have such a good sense of humor, and Jake is such a cynical bastard, and Johnny is such a goofball but their music is so serious in some ways. And in my world, there were always these bands like Amon-Ra and Neurosis and Godflesh that I always felt were just like, whoa, that shit's fucking serious.
So serious.
So serious. But when you meet them, that they're not like that. And in some ways, it's kind of just like trying to play with that a little bit. And I like the idea of like the most nerdy, uncool thing you can do as you get older is be a birder, and I like that.
So do you actually go birding at nighttime? Like with night vision goggles, looking for birds at night?
No, the nocturnal birding thing came from, I play this like clip it was like I was listening to these birding, it was like an old podcast from like the 30s or 40s. I don't know what it was. Like one of these guys has like released like a tape or a record on a radio show. And he was doing one of the clips was about nocturnal birding. And I knew right away, I was like, oh, nocturnal birding.
That's going to be the name for an album.
That's going to be the name of the album. Even though I've never been out there at night. We did see a white owl once, but yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of just kind of. I like it. I like hearing about like metal guys that play extreme shit, but do like really lame stuff as they get older. I love that sort of, you know. I'm definitely gonna be me.
Yeah, I think birds are cool as fuck. I've got a ton of birds at home. I've got chickens, quails, and
Well, you guys
parrots.
have fucking crazy wildlife there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna be really. I mean, I don't mean lame, but like I think like just when I was doing the hiking, it was just like, oh yeah, I'm not going out to bars anymore at night. That's, I'll go for a couple beers at 5, but I'm getting up early at 4 to go hiking. Like this is that's not to say it, but I go on tour and we do this thing in clubs and we go to festivals and I love that, but that's enough, for me.
You still party on the road?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Doug is a force to be reckoned with. My guitar player, but he just drinks beer, but he's a good keeps a good attitude. Some people you're on the road with, they get grumpy, and that sucks. I don't like that.
Yeah, that was me. One of the many reasons I had to quit drinking.
I saw you post about that recently.
Just become an asshole to be around sometimes. And that sucks.
It really sucks. It ruins the vibe. But you don't want to call people out on it because I know they're in pain too. So it's kind of like, I feel like I'm in a good place now where I usually shut it down pretty early. I love a couple beers in the afternoon, kind of before the show. And then, but afterwards, it's just like, oh, what I do right now is going to have like a 5-fold effect tomorrow. So like every hour I spend drinking right now, I'm going to lose 5 tomorrow. Like that's not a good percentage. So I like my mornings, good breakfast at the hotel, go for a walk.
You play with a very wide range of different acts. I think you seem to be able to fit in on all different sorts of shows, like this tour, Blood Incantation, and you played some shows at Divide and Dissolve.
I got both their stuff on right now.
Representing. I went and saw Divide and Dissolve in London the other night, the first night I got in.
Nice.
They're an incredible band.
Yeah, very unique. I really...
Takaya's attitude and everything she has to say is just so beautiful and adorable.
That's the only time I'd ever met her, but we've been talking for a long time about doing some tours, and I think we finally agreed that we were going to try to make it happen. We all got along really well. But yeah, they're great and unique, fucking heavy as hell. Blood Incantation was amazing. It was really hard for me. It was my birthday. We flew into Lisbon, and it was the first show. I'd never played any of these songs live, and we also played old songs that Doug had never played. Barge, Doppler, can't remember, Nile's Strength and Terror Bird. And so we did these songs and on a giant stage with Blood Incantation, with them all standing watching us, and it was my birthday, and we'd just flown in. It was just insane. Like,
too much pressure.
Oh, man, I had the worst body odor. I was so stressed that like Doug said I smelled like a fucking hoagie. I don't know if you know what a hoagie is. It's like a northeastern like Italian sandwich that has like hot peppers and mayonnaise. It's disgusting.
Not what you want to smell like at all.
No. But we got through it and it was fucking sick. And those guys are so nerdy. We talked about sci-fi novels because I'm super into like some sci-fi and like fantasy and stuff like that. So that was cool. And I just love that they were nerdy and like down to earth. Just made me feel warm inside to meet people like that are killing it.
How did their audience respond to Author and Punisher?
Oh, it was great. Oh yeah, we sold a shit ton of merch. I think it was we talked about like how nerdy their audience is. Like when they make little changes of their style and stuff, the people fucking freak out. And we also talked about how when I don't go to the merch booth that often anymore because I get so punished about like gear. People want to know about my gear and talk about it in great depth, and it's hard sometimes to go into it every day.
Get sick of it?
Yeah, I get sick of it. And I love the gear and I love nerding out, and I used to love it so much. Something happened during the pandemic where it's after a set, it's so taxing, and I get over there and I'm like, this is, this is, I can't do this every night like this. Yeah. So we were kind of joking around about that.
Do people ever, or has anyone ever like tried to commission you to like make their own instruments? Is that something you're interested in doing?
I am, the company, the Drone Machines, is putting out some stuff. I have like 3 or 4 people helping me. I have a guy who's doing software and electronics now. We're like on our 3rd circuit board. Like 4 of the new instruments that I have are new things that we're trying to develop as products.
Crazy.
So Arca, she's I don't know if you're aware of who she is, but she's a performer from Barcelona via Venezuela. But she's worked with you should look her up. She's amazing. She's worked with like Kanye West, FK Twigs, Kalila. Who am I missing? Anyway, I built some stuff for her, and she's kind of like a bigger pop artist. So that was maybe since 2022. I built stuff for her a few times. And I've had a few other people ask me, but they were too custom that I didn't want to, I was too busy. I said, I'll build you what I have if you want it, but I can't build you something custom.
So the Drone Machines have already made their way into mainstream pop music.
A little bit, yeah, for one artist. Coachella, she used it this year, and she took it on tour throughout Europe to sort of control lights. So it's been a project. I mean, like making stuff for myself is one thing, but then actually making it sort of like, I would say, commercially viable in the sense that like everything is like rock solid, like you can plug this thing in, plug it out, and like, oh yeah, we did some testing and that broke, so we have to redo it. And I'm kind of like ran out of my personal money to put into this. So I brought in a couple partners now to help me, another mechanical engineer and 2 software people.
So it's actually going to become a thing where you can go and order a machine.
Yeah, but I'm not going to make the drum machine that I use with my right hand. These are things that are like basically like really tactile, big sliders, faders, knobs, things that are made out of different materials. Like the first thing we're going to make is this platter, and it one of the coolest things I think is it's heavy, has a really good ball bearing, and you can get it in multiple materials like raw steel, chrome, different types of anodized aluminum. So like just kind of cuss that, and that's not just the look, it's like the weight, the feel. And I think like just giving somebody something really simple to touch and move with all the IO, like MIDI and CV gate for their modular synth nerds out there and stuff. And I only use USB. I mean, so it's like for me, I've been spending all this time making it so that like studio nerds can use it. But for me, I just like USB because plug it into my computer. It's got one cable. It's fucking tour ready,
So you come from the mechanical engineering side, but it sounds like there has to be a lot of software engineering involved in this too.
That's been it's what's been taking us so long. Like we had the mechanical engineering stuff done. Just me and my best friend pretty much my whole life is a mechanical engineer too. He lives in Oklahoma, and he's got me now working with machine shops in China and the US to like manufacture stuff, but the electronics and the software to make it open source so that people can do all this different shit with it. That's been taking fucking forever. I mean, we're probably on our 4th or 5th rev, and they're doing a great job, but it was like a huge learning curve. And it's also changing, this landscape is like, the IO is constantly changing. So, and the chip shortages, then we had to change our microcontroller because of during the pandemic. Some of these companies closed down. Some of these more like DIY microcontrollers and stuff. So, yeah.
That's a lot. It's cool to think that there's going to be drone machines eventually making their way into all sorts of music.
I think like some people will like, really, I think a lot of people don't need much. Like I use like 1, 2 microphones, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these live. Most people are going to have 1 because they're going to have a controller like you have right here, like some sort of a Kai controller that they use little knobs, and I'm going to give them a bigger one. And for that big part of that song or something, they can just sort of dial that in and show people and some things like that, just bigger gestures that the audience can see, that has higher resolution. Guitar players, don't have to bend over and turn the little knob. It'll just be like there's their reverb, dry, wet. And that's what we're hoping for, is that people just like that feel. So, and they're going to be, unfortunately, probably stupidly expensive. So,
what's the estimate cost?
I don't know. We're going to get some smaller ones, the bigger ones, but God, I mean, it's like, electron units are like 1,500, and that was like what we were shooting for some of them, but then like the smaller ones, maybe 500. But right now, because I like to use the best bearings, and I want to use I'm trying to make some out of concrete, so you get like stone, granite, or concrete knob, because I just think that would be like, it's just a knob, but it's made out of concrete. That's cool, I think. And
that makes me think of what's that German band that I can never say the name of?
Yeah.
Exactly. That one.
Exactly. That kind of stuff. I like touching it. Like when you touch the steel and the knurled edges, you can just tell it's better than this sort of rubberized knob thing, which I'm not really into. It's like feels like a shitty Volkswagen, or like a Toyota Yaris compared to like a old what's an old car that's cool? I can't even think of one. I'm not a car person.
Yeah, I can't help you there because I'm also not a car person.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think most people, electronic musicians, have been in a machine shop and worked a manual lathe and mill. And I work on microscopes, so there's all these companies like Zeiss and JEOL is this Japanese electron microscopy company. All the knobs on the panels are these crazy old things. There's one from the 80s all the way up till now. And the interfaces are really tactile and beautiful and expensive. And I just try to take all that sort of knowledge and interfacing that I go through and apply that to the instruments, so that people can that's just, these guys are it's all about tactility. Somebody that's using this every day to look at brain tissue. So why shouldn't musicians have that same? We just have all this plastic crap. It sucks. So, but I think this is a trend that I see in the modular world, especially. It's like a Gibson Les Paul versus like a shitty Charvel or something. Yeah.
So quality over everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I always liked I have a Les Paul 79 Custom. It's so heavy, and I just love playing that thing. Just right when you put it on, you feel the weight of it. You're gonna have a good set. So.
You've been to Australia a couple of times. Was Dark Mofo first or Tool?
Yeah, Dark Mofo first, I think, and then Tool maybe a couple of years later.
A great regret of mine is I was at Dark Mofo that year, and I was on the other side of the festival at some other show, and then my plan was to go and see you at Alta, and just became too chemically inebriated, and was like, there's no way I'm making it over there in time, and just didn't come. So that was a real bummer. It
was brutal, man. I came there with actually the guitarist for the first Crawler album. He was my manager and doing lights and stuff, but we were only there for like 5 days, and it was just a mess. We were pretty drunk the whole time, other than the concerts. That was hard. And then with Tool as well, because we went around and we stayed in their hotels, and we kind of treated. It was pretty sick. I mean, I'm sure it won't be this cozy the next time we do it, but it was amazing. I loved every second of it in the crowd. I think we'll do okay, because we made some fans. I still hear from people like, when are you coming back? And we surfed in Perth, did some hiking. I have some friends over there now, and the King Parrot dudes. Anyway.
How'd you link up the King Parrot dudes? Is that a housecore connection?
Yeah, housecore connection. I haven't seen them in a while, but we still keep in touch.
And what about Tool? That's a crazy relationship to have conjured up. How did that happen? They approach you? Danny Carey's wife, Ryan Stump, the Stump sisters. There's these two sisters, Sarah and Ryan. They have a festival in Portland called Stump Fest. And it's a very much I don't know if you know that region of the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. You got Yob, High on Fire. This sort of kind of this stoner influenced
metal, and so I played their festival, and Danny like knew about it, and then I think they live in Los Angeles as well, and they would come to my shows in Los Angeles, and Danny came a few times, and then I almost got a tour, but then it was Killing Joke. Then a couple of years later, Adam came to a show through the Three Teeth guys, this band Three Teeth. He was friend there. He and Lex, the singer, are good friends, and they had gone out with them. So he came to a show, and then I think that cemented it. And Adam came up to me after the show and asked. So, and then was it Maynard's wife, Jen Keenan, has a record shop. They have they make wine in the Jerome, Arizona, and she booked me at her like record shop tasting room, and we stayed overnight, and so we sort of got to be friendly, and she was also advocating for me to play. So yeah, that was it.
It's nice and organic.
It was, they were so friendly, and we were supposed to do 10 shows in the US, and then after the first show they asked me to do Australia with them, New Zealand, and then they asked me to do 5 more in the US, but we only got through 2 before the pandemic started.
Oh shit.
So I remember we had masks on at the Portland show, and I was like, we're not going to do the next 3 now, unfortunately.
Do you feel more at home playing with all these different sort of bands from all different sorts of sides of metal as opposed to playing with industrial artists?
Yeah, I would not consider myself. I was not maybe this is the way industrial artists are. Maybe everybody just sort of falls into it. But I was, other than I liked Ministry and Godflesh, and I really liked drum and bass in the late 90s. And dub and dubstep and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say.
But you weren't from like an industrial scene, so to speak.
No, like these bands like Frontline Assembly, Front 242, Nitzer Ebb, and I've certainly learned about them, and I've grown fond of a lot of what they do. But this sort of like EBM scene and this sort of like dark wave thing, and this sort of and I don't want to be cynical or anything, because if I say I don't like something, I'll probably step back on my comments and be like, oh, well, there's that band that I really like that does that thing. But that thing is basically somebody sitting behind a controller and then somebody singing. And what I don't like about that is this sort of like fact that it's the same every night. You're playing the same tracks. You don't improvise. You don't grow. Maybe your voice changes a little bit. So I understand that that's essentially kind of what DJ culture is in some ways, and so I don't want to be the grumpy uncle who's like out of date here. But
I did nothing automated about an Author and Punisher set. I take it
there is some automation. I turn channels on and off. I have a click track, and so I will from the album, not much on this new album, but like I sequence the bird sounds. So they come in and out. Sometimes I'm looping stuff live, so I'll hit a button and I'll loop a keyboard part and it'll play. But the automation of when it turns on and off, or like sometimes I'll change my vocal stuff or change the drum sound. So I used to have buttons that would mute and unmute everything. And I was like, fuck this. It was because I would just forget. So there is some automation, but for the most part, the sequences are minimal. Most of what you hear, the drums, the live synth, the vocals, the guitar, that's all live. But yeah, getting back to your question, like playing with, I think just like doom bands are my favorite to play with. I love that. It's my favorite sort of like the sort of melodic doom, like Spotlights, these types of bands, Primitive Man, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time with me today, Tristan. I'm really looking forward to seeing Author and Punisher in a few hours. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
No, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's do some shows down in
yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, it would be really cool. And
going on the record. We'll do it hopefully 2026, if not 2027.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio Technica Australia for providing the high-quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.